So it is 7:02. Any members of council who are on, if we could get you to turn on your camera so that we can see if we have quorum. So we did have regrets from Councillor Waters earlier. And I see the deputy mayor said he was going to be just a minute or two late. I was still waiting for Councillor Ices. So we'll just give it one or two. There comes Councillor Ices now, and then we'll get started. Thanks for your patience, everyone.
Your worship, I was having difficulty connecting, so others may as well.
Thank you. So hello and welcome, everyone. Earlier this evening, we opened the meeting for council to discuss non-planning matters, and now we are at the public planning portion of the agenda. So we'll get started, and I would like to advise you that this meeting will be audio and video recorded and live streamed and shall form part of the record, which will be retained according to the town's retention bylaw. I was hearing myself back, but I think everybody's muted now. That's great. Thank you for that. For more information about the collection of these recordings, please contact the clerk's office. And for any speakers tonight, please remember to mute your audio when you're not speaking. Tonight, we have one item on the agenda for information and public consultation purposes with no decisions being made this evening. We'll start by hearing from town staff and then a representative for the applicant concerning the proposed amendment to the town's comprehensive zoning bylaw to rezone the subject lands to facilitate the creation of residential lots. After they have spoken, council may have a few questions or provide comment. Then we'll have an opportunity for public consultation where members of the public who have pre-registered will be identified on the speakers list. And when it's your turn, I'll ask you to turn on your video and audio, and you'll have 5 minutes to ask your questions or express your concerns. Then town staff will respond where possible. Should anyone need to speak for a second time to identify an issue that has not already been raised or to receive clarification, you will be provided an additional 5 minutes once everyone has had a turn. Should any member of the public watching the live stream wish to make comment during the meeting, they can email or call Clerk's Services, where the deputy clerk will be monitoring for input and will provide your comments to council and town staff during the meeting. Any comments received will become part of the public record. If you do not submit your comments during this meeting, you can still send in your comments and they will be provided to council and town staff. You will also be added to the circulation list as an interested party where you will be kept updated on any future information regarding this item. The email and phone number will be listed on the PowerPoint during the meeting and is also available on tonight's agenda that can be found on the webpage. We'll now hear from the town clerk, Mr. Parkin, on how the public notice of this meeting was provided. Mr. Parkin.
Good evening. Thank you, Your Worship. Notice for this public meeting was circulated in accordance with the regulations under the Planning Act by circulating notice of complete application and public meeting 20 days prior to this public meeting to all residents within 120 meters of the subject lands and to all required commenting departments and agencies. Notice was also posted on the town's website and on the getinvolvedinnisfil.ca website for review and commenting. A notice sign was also provided on the subject lands in accordance with the regulations of the Planning Act.
Thank you, Mr. Parkin. Has any correspondence been received by the clerk's office concerning the proposed amendments?
No, we haven't received any correspondence. And just a friendly reminder to members of the public that they can provide their comments or register their interest regarding this application during the meeting or up until council makes a decision on the application by contacting the clerk's office. Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll make sure that that is up on the screen so people have the address of the phone number handy. We'll now hear from Chris Cannon, placemaker planner, who will provide a high-level summary of the planning context of the proposed amendment.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. Deputy Mayor, members of council, staff, and the public. This evening's public meeting is to discuss a zoning bylaw amendment application for the lands located at 2044 25 Side Road. The zoning bylaw amendment proposes to rezone a portion of the subject lands to facilitate future residential severances on the north portion and to rezone the south portion of the land's community service exception to recognize the existing child care facility and associated parking lot. Next slide, please. The lands subject to this zoning bylaw amendment application are known municipally as 2044 25 Side Road and is located on the west side of 25 Side Road, south of Innisfil Beach Road. The lands are approximately 0.47 hectares in size. The north portion of the lands are proposed to be rezoned from open space exemption to residential 1 to facilitate future severances for the development of single detached dwellings. The south portion of the lands are proposed to be rezoned community service exception to recognize and retain the child care facility and associated parking lot. Next slide, please. Planning staff have reviewed the proposed zoning bylaw amendment with respect to the planning policy document shown on the slide, which is provided in attachment 2 of the staff report. The Heritage Advisory Committee has indicated that the property is listed and mitigating measures should be implemented so that the structure on the south portion of the subject lands is not affected by future development. A resident, Carlos Nunes, has expressed concerns with the application as in attendance to speak towards the proposal. Staff note with regard to the town's official plan, the proposed amendment to facilitate future severances on the north portion of lands are designated residential low density 1, which permits lot creation for residential uses subject to the criteria noted in attachment 2 of the staff report. The south portion of the lands within the community space designation in the official plan permit day nurseries, which will maintain the child care facility that exists on the land today. The application is proposing site-specific provisions in the zoning bylaw for the lands. Next slide. The next steps are for staff to review, consider all public, council, department, and agency comments and report back to council on a recommendation at a future council meeting. Notice will be provided to all who request a notification and/or submitted written correspondence. Next slide. That's all I have, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cannon. We'll now hear from Marissa Handley, planner from Skelton Bromwell and Associates concerning the proposed amendment. Welcome, Ms. Handley.
Hi, good evening. I believe there is a presentation that the clerk's department is going to pull up. There we go. Perfect, thank you. So good evening, Your Worship and other council members. My name is Marissa Handley and I'm a planner at Skelton Bromwell and Associates. I'm here this evening to introduce to you the zoning bylaw amendment proposed at 2044 25 Side Road on behalf of our client, Kim Yeeman, who is also in attendance and will be able to answer any questions at the end of the presentation. Next slide, please. The subject lands are located at 2044 25th Side Road in the town of Innisfil. The property currently occupies approximately 98.5 meters of frontage along 25 Side Road and contains land holdings of approximately 1.98 acres. The lands are located within the settlement area of Elkona. And currently there is a child care center which is operated at this location from 2002 to 2014 and then also 2016 till the present. And is intended to stay the same use with no changes to the buildings. The surrounded land uses are residential and the subject lands are designated a residential low density and community space in the official plan and currently zoned open space with an exception. Next slide, please. So the purpose of this zoning bylaw amendment application is to rezone the northern portion of the lands to residential, which would resemble the current surrounding neighborhood. Currently, there are no plans for what the residential property would look like, but the client is happy to work with the town to their satisfaction for future consent applications, while maintaining the zoning provisions within the town of Innisfil zoning bylaw. Additionally, although not designated, the Heritage Committee has expressed concerns and for about all future development, and as per the town's procedures, the committee will be notified and our client will work with them. The community services zone will maintain, with the exception, will maintain the current use and will provide a less restrictive options for future uses while maintaining a range of institutional and community uses. Next slide, please. Thank you. So briefly, I just wanted to review the planning policies and how this application is consistent with all the applicable policies. This is explained in more detail in the planning justification report submitted with the application. The current OP designation is residential low density and community space. In the local official plan, permitted uses include single detached dwellings and day nurseries in each prospective uses. And the proposed use is consistent with policies within these designations. Next slide, please. The current zoning on the property is OS, open space exception. The uses are listed on the screen, including daycare, a daycare center, and appropriate parking. Next slide, please. The proposed zoning will be residential R1 and community service with an exception. The R1 zone will reflect the same uses as permitted within the other surrounding residential uses. The permitted uses are listed on the screen in front of you. And the community service zone will provide a range of institutional and community uses, including those listed on the screen in front of you, as well as a cemetery, conservation use, government facility, hospital, library, long-term care home, medical office, passive recreation, place of worship, religious retreat or camp, retirement home, school, university, and accessory structure. The next slide, please. So in conclusion, the proposed development of 2044-25 Side Road requires a zoning bylaw amendment to rezone from open space to residential and community service zones on the subject lands. The zoning bylaw amendment will allow for future development of residential and community service facilities within the primary settlement area of Alcona, as well as allow the subject lands to maintain the same current day nursery or childcare facility. In our professional opinion, the zoning bylaw amendment is a minor change to the subject lands and is consistent with all relevant legislation and policy. Next slide, please. So my client and I would be happy to answer any questions that the public or council has.
Thank you, Ms. Handley. And if Ms. Yeaman wants to turn on her camera now, you're more than welcome to. And Mr. Cannon, thank you. And I'll ask members of council questions, please. Councilor Arsati?
Thank you, Worship. Just on two different things. I believe when Mr. Cannon was speaking, he was stating that it was severances for the north lot, but I believe that you referenced a single detached home. So I just wonder, this north portion for residential 1, is this going to be severed lots for multiple single detached dwellings? Is my first question. And then in follow up to that is there's a pathway that goes from the 25th Side Road to Lilac. And that's been a concern with the residents that live on Lilac. And I just wonder what's going to happen with that narrow pathway if that's a residential lot? What would be a future plan for that?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, to Councilor Asadi. The actual area in frontage of the lands to be rezoned for residential purposes could allow for essentially 3 severances. It's unclear exactly. I mean, you have the 49.25, the lot frontage minimum is 15 meters for that particular R1 zone. And the area provisions that all 3 lots would meet those provisions. So they could get 3 lots out of this particular section of the R1 zone. As far as what I will refer to as remnant lands that stretch over to Lilac, I think that is something that the owner and myself have discussed. Our legal department does not have any intention to take those lands in public ownership. So it would be up to the landowner to decide what to do with those remnant lands. In my discussions with the landowner, there has been some need or want or interest to potentially sell it off or deed it to the neighboring landowners if they are in fact interested.
More questions, Councillor Asadi?
Thank you. Also, just wondering about the parking facilities. So for the south portion, which is the Simcoe Child Care Services School, it's showing in the map the 2 buses, and it looks like ample parking. I can't remember whether there was a playground there, but I'm just concerned about any changes to that would also impact parking that would be required on the street. And the reason I just asked that, I mean, that's still a large portion for the school portion, which was the old ABC Hall, which does have a lot of historical heritage information on it. The reason I ask is the other school that's located on St. Paul Road, there is a lot of parking on the side streets that go not only on St. Paul, but further on. So is there any need to address any future parking issues, or would that be addressed at a future time if there's changes to that school?
Mr. Cannon?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councilor Asadi, if there are any changes that are required as a result of the daycare childcare facility needing additional parking, or if there's additions, it seems to me, based on my site visit and looking at the aerial photos, that there's plenty of room for drop off and pickup, along with parking that can accommodate the staff.
Thank you. Other questions, comments from members of council? I had a couple. So the if that child daycare center was to be built new today, how many parking spots would it be required to have? You don't have to, if you don't have that answer for me today, Mr. Candy, you can address it in the report. But I'd just like to know that how many it would be required to have if it wasn't already as of right. And also parkland dedication. And you mentioned that legal isn't interested in that trail, but I just wondered what amount of parkland dedication would be would it amount to for that piece, and would it be enough to keep that trail open if indeed it is a well-used trail, which I don't know. It's not, according to Councillor Arsati, so I'll leave it at that. Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll now hear from those members of the public who have questions regarding the proposed amendment before council votes on receiving the report and all comments provided during the meeting. The speaking order is now on the screen. When it's your turn, you'll have 5 minutes to express your questions or concerns, and town staff will be capturing your comments as we progress. Once your 5 minutes are up, please turn off your video and audio, and I will call the next speaker's name. Once all speakers on the list have spoken, I will ask for any additional speakers, and at that time, please turn on your video and raise your hand. I will call the speaker's name and ask that they turn on their audio when it is their turn for additional 5 minutes. But seeing we only have 2 people on the list tonight, I'm going to suggest that we don't have 20 people in the queue, so I'm not suggesting that's going to be a problem. So we'll start, and then after all, so we'll start with Carlos Nunes, please. Carlos, if you're here, could you turn on your video and your audio, or unmute if you're on a phone? Seeing none, and if you're watching on live stream and there's been some confusion, you can send your comments into the clerk's office, or please feel free to submit them in writing as well. Next is Fatima de Vascos. I'm not even going to try. I'm just going to say Fatima.
Hello?
Hi, whenever you're ready.
Okay, actually, Carlos Nunes is here. However, he couldn't connect in. Okay. There's a delay between the telephone and the screen, but
Right.
Carlos will go first before I go.
Okay, if you could just mute your, if you're doing the live stream, if you could mute that and then go ahead.
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me? This is Carlos Nunes.
Hello, Carlos, go ahead whenever you're ready.
Oh, thank you so much. Greetings, Your Worship and members of council. My name is Carlos Nunes, and I am a member of the ABC Club since 1999, and I've served as a trustee and a vice president on numerous of times for the club, which I'm very proud of. Now, what I'm bringing to the table here is something to do with the AGM that the ABC had on August the 21st. Once again, at that AGM, I was appointed trustee by the membership, and I'm very proud to, again, continue these roles. Now, when we come to our AGM, we ask what is the new news that could be presented that the board should be issuing to us. And basically, the board said there was no new news. So I said, okay, great. Everyone was fine with that. But then we basically realized that this was transpiring without the membership being aware of. And I said to myself, well, I'm going to forward an email to the board and find out what is happening here. Why was this not brought up as new news on our AGM? Our last AGM was done only online. This was in person at the park, our ABC park here. And we had a show of hands. We had everybody there. We had a quorum and all those good things. But when I sent the email to the board, I was dismissed. And I was dismissed by the board. And that was a little bit disheartening as to why this wasn't brought up.
Mr. Nunes, I'm sorry to interrupt, but this is a public meeting about the rezoning of this property. So I think I understand that this property used to be owned by the ABC Club, but is no longer. So if you could make your comments about questions or comments about the rezoning of this piece of property, that would be wonderful.
Absolutely, and I thank you for repivoting me on that. Basically, when I was present as a trustee, dealing with Luna at that time, that the child care services was setting up, I was present for the meetings that dealt with these contracts, and Fatima will speak further on these particular contracts. But I was an eyewitness to the fact that certain conditions were put into place, that certain steps had to be taken before any actions of severances or rezoning could occur. Now, I'm pretty much done with my part, because then thank you for correcting me on that. I was just giving you some insight that I felt was rather relevant, but I'm going to pass now to Fatima unless there's a question for me.
Thank you. No, you go ahead. And I didn't mean to be rude and interrupt. It's just when it's a public planning meeting, it's important that we only discuss public planning meeting. That's all we advertise to the public we were talking about tonight. So if we go off and talk about other items under our procedural bylaw, we are required to advertise what we're going to be talking about. So tonight, the only thing we advertised we were going to be talking about was this particular zoning bylaw amendment application. So sorry to be rude. And Fatima, whenever you're ready.
Fatima, I'm going to pass this on to Fatima.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Hi, Your Worship. So basically, I was part of the board when, in July 31st, 2018, when Luna Services and the ABC Club signed an agreement. And that agreement that is in place states that nothing can be done to the property until the contract, the terms of the contract is completed and fulfilled. So I am not certain why Luna Services is asking to rezone the 2044 25th side road, because it is in the contract that she has with us that she cannot do that. So as a member of the ABC, I am very concerned that this is being done without permission from its members. And I definitely advise the council to reconsider passing this until the membership of the Alcona Beach Club, which is about 165 homes, I believe, can vote on this and revisit the contract and decide whether or not Luna Services can rezone. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those comments. I would now call on the clerk's office. Have any emails or telephone calls be received by the clerk's office during this meeting?
No,
I do not.
We have not received any emails or calls during the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we will move on to the recommendation to receive the staff report and any comments provided during this meeting. And I'll ask council, has there been any further comments or questions? Councillor Nicol.
Thank you, Worship. Just a bit of confusion there. The applicant is the owner of the property, is that correct? Or does the ABC Club still have ownership in it? Is it a leased property, or is there some sort of mix up there? Or I don't understand the residents that we're concerned about it. Is the ABC Club still exist and own that and sublet it, or how is this being, or is it is the new owner looking for the application?
I'm going to call on Mr. Parkin, Director of Legal Services. So I'm going to say what I think, and then you can tell me if I'm wrong, right or wrong. So the owner of the property is coming for a severance, and the comments were that there's some concerns of some unfulfilled obligations in a contract between the ABC Club and the current owner. but I'm assuming that is something will come back. So no decisions are being made tonight. We're simply receiving this information. Staff will take this information away and do some investigation and come back with a staff report. And any interested parties will be given notice when this is coming back. And I will ask then, we'll go to the staff report, and I'll ask for a mover and a seconder to receive the comments presented tonight, and this in a comprehensive report outlining recommendations and options at a future council meeting. And that's moved by Councillor Orsatti and seconded by Councillor Van Berkel. All those in favor? That is carried. Now, I just wanted to thank everybody who's taken the time to watch the live stream meeting and presentation regarding the proposed amendment, and remind, if you have not made oral or written submissions in regards to this proposal before a decision is reached, you should be aware that the Ontario Land Tribunal may dismiss your appeal. Anyone who wishes to provide comment may still do so, and may also register as an interested party to be contacted before this application is further considered by council. Please contact clerk's office at innisfil.ca, as seen in red at the bottom. And I want to thank everybody for their participation. So we'll now move back to we had a mover and a seconder for that, and we need a confirming bylaw for our special council meeting for this evening. Moved by Councillor Van Berkel and seconded by Councillor Ices. All those in favor? That is carried. And finally, adjournment. So at 7:34 p.m. and that's moved by Councillor Nicol and seconded by Councillor Fowler. All those in favor? Thank you, everyone, for being here this evening for the special council meeting, and you'll be notified when this is coming back to council for debate and vote. Good night.
Good night, everybody.